It is Lordo's Deep Dive, brought to you by our mates Al and Jez and the team at Unique Wrought Iron. Jump online, check them out. Hey, they've got some great specials on at the moment. The end of financial year sale, and that includes free installation. Jump online, check them out. Check out Lordo.
TJ, this deep dive is all about the big freeze and two of the sliders in Jeff Farmer, the Wizard, and also Shane Crawford, who I think we forget just how good Shane was. Yes. So we'll start with Jeff Farmer and the most amazing Queen's birthday game, which we've got coming up tomorrow. He was in all sorts. He wasn't going well. You look at the scoreboard. I think this is his first goal. So he was dragged. He hadn't scored a goal in the first half. He goes on and kicks 9 in the second half of football. And some of these highlights, they're as good as you'll see. And I think there's another guy that you forget just how good Jeff Farmer was. But he put on an absolute clinic. As I said, 9 goals. And what's some of these marks as we come on? He was just sitting on heads. He'd turn sideways, freak goals, just knew where they were. Just a phenomenal performance from Jeff Farmer. And then I think this was late in the game. He's kicked his 8th and then went on and kicked another one after that, Damo. So the week after, he went bang again.
Yeah, he backed it. The very next week after, he kicked 7 goals in Paul Salmon's 300th game, playing for Hawthorn, obviously. And it was the start of their surge, Lordo. They were 8th on the ladder going into these 2 games. They came out of it in 6th place. They ultimately made the grand final where you guys at Essendon stitched them up in that particular game. But Bill, at one stage, after he kicked his 7th year, he'd had 16 goals won in the previous 5 and a little bit quarters.
5 quarters?
5 quarters for 16 goals, 1 behind.
When he was on,
after half-time of the previous game against Collingwood.
So he looked like he wore an oversized jumper all the time too, didn't he?
Yeah, apart from Nathan Brown, who was the best player in the comp for that 10-match period, I'm not sure anyone's ever been hotter than Jeff Farmer, because in the same year he kicked 8 against Fremantle. So he's gone 9, 8 and 7 in one period. So he, of course, eventually went on to play for Fremantle. But the explosiveness is a thing, just watching these highlights, that stands out, and the ability to win it one-on-one and then just know where the goals are. So perhaps the hottest stretch of form we've ever seen from any individual, apart from Nathan Brown, of course, in one season.
One of my favourite players to watch, and even when you played against him, you were just in awe of what he did up the other end. But he did it in big games too. Preliminary final to get them into their first grand final since 1988. He kicked 8. Jeff Farmer. So this is massive against the Kangaroos. And when he was on, have a look at that. He was just a deadly finisher. Jeff Farmer, one of the most watchable players in the last 30 years.
We set Mark Johnson for him the week after just to get under his skin, just try and terrorise. I think Mark kept him to 3 or something like that. So he did a good job considering the red-hot form that he was in. He was second in the Coleman medal that year, only beaten by a good and better forward that year, Bill.
Don't tell me who was it.
I don't know. We'll have to do your research.
Riley Philthorpe.
Hey, Bill, you're up.
Am I? What about his first game against
Melbourne? I think it might be me, actually, because he did eventually transfer over to Fremantle.
Which you forget about a bit.
Yeah, well, not when you look at things like this. Now, Melbourne was destined for victory here until Farmer chipped in very late in the game with 2 goals. Now, that one there, he reckons, went over the point post. Then you can see Nita got in his back, gave away a free kick, and I think there was like 2 seconds left on the clock. And here is his kick to actually, I tell you what, you'd be a bit nervous, you were Freo fans watching that go through, and that won them the game. So he jumped into the crowd and celebrated, and it was an amazing occasion. It really was. Why, do you recall why he went to Fremantle?
No, I don't, actually.
Played 130 games there or something.
For Freo, did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is strange. This is, here he is, here in his 6th game. And look, he gets a free kick. He was only 15 metres out. Handballs over the top.
Come on, Gaz.
Come on, Gaz. He's not ready. Kicks the goal. Have a look at Neil Barnback just going, what's going on there? Look, where's Barmy? Wait for Barmy's reaction. Look at him. Oh, no, what is he doing? I think Barmy might have been asleep and he just woke up.
No, Barmy's dreaming about one day being at Geelong and then Richmond.
Yeah, winning premierships.
So that was Jeff Farmer, and now another slider on tomorrow will be Shane Crawford. And this was Crawford's first interview. It was with Lou Richards after his 2nd game of AFL football.
The season is only 2 weeks old, but the success story so far has been Shane Crawford, Hawthorn's human dynamo.
And this is young Crawford firing in a goal. I think he's kicked it.
An injury to John Platten opened the door for Crawford to assume the role of first rover for last Sunday's match against the Swans. And the 19-year-old returned the show of faith with a best on ground 28 possessions. Already, Crawford has been touted as a future champion. And Hawthorn stalwarts are quick to compare him to a blonde bombshell of years gone by, the late Peter Crimmins.
Great honour to be compared to a player like Peter. I'm being compared to him. I've still got a long way to go.
Crawford is yet another product of Assumption College, but now he's enrolled in the toughest school of all, the AFL.
Alan Joyce has just taught me so much more, and I'm still learning. You know, I'm just thinking, how am I meant to play football? I've got all this stuff to learn. I'll never learn it.
That is fantastic.
Well, he did learn it, Lordo. He absolutely did, because I reckon he was ahead of his time with the training professionalism. Like the stories that I used to hear, I looked up to him a lot. The going for runs after training, Bill, and the crazy stuff that he put himself through, and it all eventually came out on the field, because we'll have a look at some of his gut-running goals. Played on him a number of times, and from that generation I got so much respect for the midfielders who were tagged every week. It's not like today where the mids just rock up and you can pencil them in for 30. It was different back then when you had idiots like me trying to stop them from doing that, and he never gave up, he never got frustrated, and it was.
Where did he rank in the gut
football.
runners, Kane? Where did he rank against the ones you tagged?
Yeah, well, because he had speed as well, so he had the explosiveness but also the aerobic capacity. I think him and Judd were the two most powerful runners that I was fortunate enough to play on.
And, sorry, we just lost that bit of vision there for you, Kano. But in terms of the next bit, he became a tagger at one stage too. I'll never forget, I played against the Hawks at Waverley, and he was in the James Hird right from the start with a real aggression, getting into Hird. He absolutely hated it, but he had this in him too, Shane. So he was a gut runner, and then he obviously could take the odd specky too, and then just got under James's skin in a real way.
So he could look after himself.
He could look after himself. Oh, not in that way, but in terms of he was set upon these tasks at one stage of his career where he potentially lost his way.
Mentally, he was pretty tough. But I'll tell you what else he could do. He thought he could act, and he thought he was a producer. And he started up the House of Bulger. And this is him here acting, fair dinkum. And there's Gaz, and there's old Fat, and...
Is your testicle hanging?
Frank!
What are you doing out of the closet? Imagine you're f***ing here. I'm having a baby! Picture from over there.
This is Sunday morning.
Yeah, and that's how you should eat your nachos or whatever they are. But he was the captain of Hawthorn, Crawford, at the time. He copped a lot of criticism, as we all did. But Crawford was the captain, Tony. What are you doing?
And were you in it too as a player too, Brandy?
A long time ago. Let's talk about Crawford's 200th game, and he was a wonderful player. 200th game. He took his boots off, he took his socks off, he took his shorts, and he threw them all into the crowd, Shane Crawford, to some lucky fans for his 200th. So he was always the entertainer, Shane Crawford.
His shorts off, did he? He did?
Yep, he did. He did. He was the entertainer. He was before ahead of his time, and he wanted to go to Hollywood. He thought he was going to be an actor over in Hollywood.
He'd
Come a long way from that first interview, TJ.
He certainly has come a long way, hasn't he? So,
Yeah, Kane.
Ian Dicker, not Kecker.
Kane asked if Ian Dicker was Sam Kikovich there at one stage.
Come on, Kane.
Kane, what are you talking about?
Sorry, my feed just cut out over here in Adelaide. I just lost the
Mate,
the
we've
feed
seen you
for a
without a
bit.
top on. You haven't had a feed in a long time. So, anyway,